Hello, Culture Matters podcast. You're in store for a good one today. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. I am not afraid. I was born to do this. Joan of Arc.
Nice.
Our guest today freaking said that before this without even knowing the quote was going to use. That's how exciting and meant to be this show is today. They've been in my life for almost a decade. Feels like an almost like alternate universes put us in one another's lives many years ago. Even when I wore velvet and talked too much and listened too little, they loved me and believed in the culture matters and where it could become. They've been in their business as an expert, and even before specifically going into advisory and customer service and sales and mentorship with their clients in the mortgage business. Over 30 years, starting from assistant to or front desk to one of the most badass people in a whole great wide business, uh, growing through the ebbs and flows of the mortgage industry and helping people, which is what's most important, with their home buying process. Christa Kusler, love you. The one that she could also be a fly by night marriage setter upper, having really influenced and led to me to meet who would end up becoming, it's the weirdest thing, my wife, like, right? So I met my wife through really Krista. So wow, what a blessing to have you on the show. And
Thank you.
clearly I'm an asshole for waiting this long to have you on, but I'll just like I
Not at
have to
all.
say it.
We've tried. We've tried.
So
Well,
thank you. Thanks for
it's a
coming on
pleasure to
the
be
show.
here, Jay. And I love you too. And I love my Jenna.
Now, like, did you aspire to be in sales? And would you even consider it that? Like when you were young, you know, did you want to be an entrepreneur? Did you foresee yourself being a trainer and a teacher? Or did you get pulled into it?
So I feel like I always was a very maternal person. And I was a mom very young. So I didn't really have a choice but to have the drive to get out there. And I think because I was a teen mom, you have a stigma. And I really wanted to prove to everyone I'm still going to be the badass that I was always going to be. Just because I had a baby is not going to set me apart from my goals. And because I had to put my son first and my career second, it drove me more to want to be a better person for him and to provide him the life that I wanted to have for myself before I had him. So yeah, I think I always knew that I was going to be entrepreneurial. That was always in my spirit from the time I was young, and helping people and guiding them and doing all the things that you just mentioned are part of what drives me to still be so passionate about my industry, because I teach and I advise, and it's part of our company culture to make it that it isn't about the money or the financial part. The numbers are very important, but it's more the relationship and having that. So,
What was the culture like that in that first company that you were at when you first started? And what you were, is it front desk? You worked your way all the
yeah,
way
so and the
through?
culture was wild. I mean, it was at a time where I was a receptionist. It was a bunch of young, early 20s, and I was 18 years old. I was in college at the time, and my ex-husband had been deployed to the Middle East for work. So I left Maine, where I was living and going to school, and I came home and I worked for a company, Resource One Mortgage. And just a bunch of really fun young 20-year-olds that were making a ton of money as loan officers, some of which are still very good friends of mine to this day and in the industry. One works for one of the best appraisal management companies in my mind. And we still joke, and he'll still introduce me at mortgage conferences as his secretary.
Wow,
But yeah,
that's
fun group of
funny.
guys. And they always used to say to me, did you ever want to consider being a loan officer? And I mean, at the time I was, I didn't even know what a loan officer meant. So it started there, and then it moved on to, I did learn what a loan officer was. Very nice man in the company, Rick, and his wife took me under their wing, invited me to their home for dinner,
Wow.
taught me how to read an appraisal. This is when you used to have photos developed, okay, for your appraisal. There was nothing technology based. Everything was like you drop the film off, you pick it up, you get the photos, they stuck
Wow.
to the paper. But they manually taught me how to figure out a loan to value, a debt ratio. I mean, I couldn't have had better teachers. And from there, I started to interview for sales, or actually for processing positions, because some people had said, in order to be a great salesperson, the best place to start is as a processor, because you learn the back end of the mortgage process. All right. So I went to Gelt Financial was hiring a processor. So I went to an interview in Feasterville, PA with Jack Miller,
Wow.
and Jack was phenomenal. He gave me a great interview, but he said, I'm not saying you can't have the job or have a job, but I need you to sit here for 1 minute. And he ran out and he came back with John Zeitz, who was his sales manager, and said, I want you to talk to her. And they did not hire me as a processor, but they hired me as a salesperson, as a loan officer. They said,
Really?
you do not need to waste time in the back room. You need to get right out there. You're a salesperson. So they
What did
gave
they
me, they
see?
they bet on me, like they believed in me. And I love Jack, and I'm still friends with Jack to this day. And he owns Gelt Financial, and he's a wonderful man.
What did they see?
They just saw like my personality, and they thought that I just, I was a very, I don't know, I can't go back. I don't remember exactly what they said to me, but they just said that I was resonating to them as someone that would bring people together and guide and teach. And that putting me behind the phone and not in the front and not being forward facing was going to delay my career. And they were
Wow.
right.
That's
From that
amazing.
point, I never looked back. Sales was it. And that was hardcore subprime 19-20% loans. This was like not 30-year fixed mortgages. This was hard, bad credit, um,
Oh,
back in the day, no income loans, all kinds of crazy programs.
like early 2000s, late
No,
90s,
it was, let me think
98,
about this.
99.
It was mid 90s. It was like probably like 95.
Wow.
Yeah, 94, 95. Mhm.
What would you say you picked up then that you use even to this day?
So a lot of my culture stems from Jack Miller, because he was similar in the fact that he didn't teach from a book of mortgage programs. For example, he would bring in his rabbi, and the rabbi would speak to us. Now, I grew up in
Wow.
a Jewish Italian neighborhood in New York. I grew up Catholic, but I had a significantly, a big Jewish family friends and close friends. So I was very culturally diverse, and I really found a lot of things in common with the Jewish faith. And the things that the rabbi used to bring to us to train us was mind blowing. And I wish I had notes on it right now to share, but I don't. But again, it was
Wow.
more the way that you speak to people and the way that you bring them into the transaction versus the numbers. It was awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What
Great
advice
culture,
do
Jay.
you, yeah, well, what was it real? Like, what would you say would have been some of the core values then?
So, the relationship with your client, the relationship with your ancillary partners, and how important they were. They spoke to us, in ways that taught us how to build relationships so that the consumer and the ancillary would always be loyal, because you had a different dynamic with them. You weren't trying to sell them something, you were forming something that was like natural, right? Like when you
Oh,
and I met,
oh
right?
yeah.
It was just when you have like a
Josh
natural
Buchter.
friendship.
That was
Yeah,
that party or that
that's
event.
right. Yeah, it was a networking event. You were in one of your snazzy jackets, and I had to be somewhere quick, and I was there a short time, but in the short period of time, we connected on what
Yep.
your message was, what mine was, and we knew, okay, how can we, continue to build off
I was
this?
trying to leave the reception desk.
Yeah, you were.
I was,
And look at you now.
I feel like I'm back in the reception.
Well, you're always
No,
you have to always stay there a little bit.
what do you mean? Yeah, help us
You don't,
out.
you always, they always say, right? It's like it's lonely at the bottom. I forget there's like a quote, something about the bottom, the middle, and then they hate you at the top or something. I don't know. But like, I feel like if you always stay a little bit at the bottom,
Yeah, I agree. That's
you,
good.
you cultivate with the middle and you learn from the top, then you're always going to feel like everyone's going to feel comfortable. There's no one that's a boss on our team or at our company. I get in the trenches with my loan officers,
Wow.
whether a producer, an ancillary partner, like a real estate agent is a top producer, or they just got their license a month ago. You have to be able to like share your knowledge with people and learn from them. And I think that's why it's important to remember that you're always a little bit of a receptionist, you know?
What advice do you have? I want to go back to just the beginning for a second for those that may have a young child and are new into the business. And I asked specific. I had a call just last night off camera, a gentleman that's a regular on the show that I had forgotten that they were 19 when they had their first daughter,
Wow.
and they left home at young, and it was like, well, it was. So there are people listening to this. There are guests that come on the show in a scenario like that. So for the listeners that are currently in that scenario, you have a one-on-one with them. What do you say to them?
So times have changed a lot, I mean, there's a lot more ability to work from home and have flexibility. And now that I have so many years experience, if I was a mom now, it would be a lot easier because I have my sphere and my book of business and I could just bring my child with me where I would need to go. Um, but I feel like in our society, we people are having children a lot later too. So if you're speaking to someone who's a very young person having a child, to utilize your friends, your family, your daycare settings, things that are going to help the child grow as you're growing, and really prioritize your time and focus on your growth because it is important as they grow. You want to be able to be a part of their things and be able to go to the events and volunteer. By the time my son was 11, I had built my business enough to where I could volunteer and I ran the holiday shop at the school. So I utilized my financial background to help orchestrate the purchasing of all the little tchotchke things that we were selling at the holiday shop. But I was able to do things like that. And I was able to, you know, but there was years in between of taking calls in the car while my family was at the beach, kids crying, they want, why can't we go here? We need to go there. And I'm pen and paper and I'm taking applications. Technology's helped with that a lot now. We didn't have mobile apps. People can apply online. It comes into my portal. So our industry's changed so much. But at the end of the day, if it's a young mother who's starting out or father and they have a young child, my biggest advice is just utilize all of your resources so that you can time block your time and you can grow and put 1,000% into it when you have that time. And then this way you can give 1,000% to your child when you're not working. Our business is tough. It never stops. There's no I got to put the baby to bed. I have to call you back. Well, they're just going to call the next
Mm,
person,
mm.
right? So you have to be able to like make boundaries with your client, but before you make a relationship, they know you have a child. Now there's a respect level, and they're going to give you that respect of speaking to you after they go to bed.
Has it, what's your take on work ethic?
So I think the second you become a parent, you you have the biggest shoes on earth to fill, right? And that's the biggest job you're ever going to get. So that right there should drive your ethic and your work. If we're still speaking about the same topic here, I mean, work ethic in general is extremely important to me. And I don't think you could teach it. I think it's built inside you. I think, you either don't see good work ethic as a child, so you have the drive to have it because you want better for yourself, or you're just built into a family that, you know, your culture around you your whole life and you're cultivated to be part of things like that.
Mm.
Can go both ways, right?
Yeah. What about do you think there's opportunity for people that are listening that want to get in the mortgage business now?
Absolutely. There's a ton of opportunity. We're getting ready to go into, you know, I foresee interest rates declining over the next 6 to 18 months. We've had folks that were, locked into 8+%. There's going to be a nice little opportunity. There's not going to be a refi boom like there was during COVID. I don't foresee that. But I definitely think that there's that opportunity for someone with strong work ethic, who's people, oriented and has a drive to help, to absolutely be successful in the mortgage business, hands down.
Like people can still make great livings from it and build careers.
Absolutely. Fantastic livings.
What types of what type of person does it is it best suited for, would you say? Like character attributes or traits or the mindset?
So I think that the best loan officer is someone who really genuinely enjoys working with people. All right. You have to enjoy working with people because you're going to have all walks of life. And you also have to be someone who realizes that you have to have a lot of eggs in your basket. You can't just chase after one particular loan or one real estate agent. And that you have to be able to juggle a lot of things. So someone has to be able to multitask,
How about
network. Okay, you got to be you have to be able to speak and be able to be in front of people. If you got in trouble in school for talking, okay, and got your hair pulled in kindergarten and told to be quiet, then you will be a wonderful loan officer. That was me.
why? Why? Oh, that's great.
Because if you like to talk and you want to help and you're the one that's always out there trying to, I don't know, just not be quiet. Everyone I know that's really successful in this business likes to talk. And I'm trying really hard as I
Wow.
get older to shut
Yeah.
up because it's important to listen,
Well, what's the balance? Yeah, what's the balance?
right?
What is it? What do you see after your years of experience where when's best to where
Keep
the
your mouth shut.
client needs if right, if I don't speak, they don't know there's a cliff. At the same time, when do I listen? What do you think?
So
Because a lot of it's advice too. It's like I have
it's a
no
lot of
idea
it is
about.
advice, and you have to be careful, right? You'd be surprised how many conversations you get into and they go completely one side. They're not even about real estate or mortgage anymore. They're about insert their whatever situation that they're going through. So, I think what I've learned to do that I didn't used to do is I would share my own personal information too, and I would share back instead of just listening. And now on a professional side, if you're not my friend and we're not out for a drink or a coffee and you're not asking for my advice, I'm listening. And I listen and I am sympathetic, empathetic, and I share, just like a teeny bit of wisdom versus I remember, when that happened to me and I'm going on and on. And then I'm like, what did I just do? I'm telling this client, I don't even know them. Like, my life
I love it.
story, not
Yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah. But you could do that with me anytime. I enjoy it.
Yes. Right.
Um, what's the value of tempering that a bit though? What would be part of your reasoning that could be helpful for our listeners?
Time, you know, a lot of time wasted. And if you want to move on to the next thing for the day, whether it's another client that might need you or just personal time for your own things, that's another thing, Jay, is that like you grow and you learn. as crazy of a hustle as this is, you have to make time for yourself because it doesn't ever stop. And, you tend to get burnt out.
Yeah, like what type of work schedule did have you kept in the years that really were the most fruitful? Is there a connection? Like how many ice baths you taking?
Right. Well, none, because I will not get in an ice bath. I know that it's the trend. It's kind of fizzling a little bit.
That's why I said it like tongue in cheek or whatever.
Yeah, right. So things have changed. Like I said a little bit ago, right? Technology is really in our favor now. We're in a different world now than we were. There's no more photographs for an appraiser to take to drop off at a lab. There's no more photocopies, faxes. When someone's like, I need to fax it, I'm like, oh God. You know, all of that has changed. So if you are effectively using technology, and from me, this is a big deal for me to like grasp on because I'm not great at it and I don't like it. I feel like my mom when she used to be like, I can't fix the remote. And now I'm like, I feel the same way. It's so overwhelming. Um, quick, story. We have these videos that we send out for each milestone on our files. And you go under contract all the way to closing. We send out videos. So one of a partner in my company, he's really into it. I think you know Luke. Luke is super into the videos.
Luke, like the
Yes.
tall,
Okay.
strong man.
Yes.
You
So
still
Luke,
work. We worked out once, like 7 years
yeah,
ago.
back in
That
the
Luke,
day.
man,
So
I'd love to
Luke,
have him on the show. I didn't even
oh,
know
he's
you guys
great.
still
You should
work
definitely
together.
have him on. Luke brings so much energy and value in different ways. He operates so differently. I hired Luke as a loan officer and now he's my partner because he's
Yeah,
a beast.
yeah, that was years
Yeah,
ago.
it was probably within a couple years of when I met you. I met Luke through similar, you know,
Wow, culture.
circumstances. And he was a call center loan officer. And I said, when you're ready to be a real loan officer, give me a call. And like a week later, he called me. Anyway, I'm not going to tell Luke's whole story. That's for
Wow.
him to tell, but I'll share this video story because we're talking about technology. So he does these videos, which I think are great, but I'm a coward and I don't make them. And he's in a tux. He's shooting confetti when the closing is, I mean, clear to close. You got confetti. He's got the bow tie on. Gets an email last night from an agent. She says, can you do me a favor? Can you just email me the updates and stop with the videos? Like, really? He's putting so much effort into this and everyone
Wow.
likes them. And then you get this miserable person who maybe she doesn't like them. She doesn't have to open them because there is information in the email that says clear to close or appraisal ordered or whatever milestone it is. You didn't have to watch his video, but you don't have to be mean either. So that's why I get nervous with some of this stuff because I'd be the one getting that email, then I would get in a fight with
This
her.
is why I charge for OnlyFans.
That's right.
I'm teasing. Oh my God, they're gonna take me serious.
Oh,
God,
yeah. But
so wait,
anyway, so
he's
technology is a big
being.
thing, and I went
I
on
want
a
to make sure I get this story correctly. He's putting all this effort in and your team into adding something of value, and there's someone that's poo-pooing on it.
correct.
How do we stay consistent? How do we stay focused and concentrated on the goal? And when we how do you keep going forward when you're getting feet? And is that
Yeah,
just the projection because it's a tougher time in the market? I guess what's that person going through?
right. And I guess I know a little bit too much about the person. I follow her on social media. I just personally did a mortgage for a partner of hers on her real estate team. So I know her really well. So it's really, really, it's like, it's so not nice. So I said to Luke, well, what are you going to say? And he said, I sent her a message back and I told her, next time I promise her she won't get a video, I'm going to send her a first class letter. He's going to mail her a letter.
On the agent piece for a second, how important do you think it is for agent relationships, agent to agent? If I'm an agent listening to this to build their book, their business, how important do you think it is agent to agent relationships in their
Oh,
business?
1000%. You mean real estate agent to real estate agent?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
and yes,
huge.
how important? Is
It's
that
so huge. Like
are there relationships?
there's a couple folks here locally that have like coffees for closers. They get all the agents together and they get, they do this and they have coffee. I have a nice little group with loan officers. We kind of do the same thing. It's gotten a little loosey goosey, but we have a text feed and we're all friends. But yeah, it's super important because you're going to be on the other side of the transactions with these people. And when you see their name, it's just, it's so important to be able to have some kind of rapport and know a little bit about them. And then you know what you're working with.
Why do you think professionals don't think past their customer? Because you mentioned ancillary earlier,
Yeah.
and the culture, I think it was of the Gelt, like it
Yeah.
seemed like a more holistic view of things. But I'm trying to put myself in the position of that realtor, right? Maybe they're obsessed with their customers, but they're not thinking about all the other people.
Yeah, and it's odd because the way to the loyalty of that customer is through their sphere. Like you
What do
have
you
to
mean?
work each relationship. So, I do a mortgage for you, I close your loan, I have a client appreciation, I have a brunch, and I invite you to my brunch, but I also say, bring any of your family or friends or anyone that you would think would be interested in real estate information or mortgage information in the future. We would love to have them as well. You have to keep cultivating and working everybody. Everyone's a lead. You go to a diner. I used to have this one when I was in wholesale for a short period of time. I left retail and I wasn't selling loans direct to consumer. I was selling them to brokers. And it was for a few years. And there was this one guy that was in Easton, Pennsylvania, Italian guy. I can't think of his name right now. We would go to lunch and he would stand up and he would clap in a diner and be like, "Who needs a mortgage?" and yell it out. And I used to be like, "Oh my God," I was in my early 20s. I was like, "I'm going to crawl under this table." But he literally would have people come up to him and he had his name on the side of a bus. I mean, he did not care. He went after everybody, and everywhere he was, he said, "Krista, everyone's a lead." And, okay, Joe and Tom. Yep, they were partners.
How important is confidence in the business?
So important. So important. The fake it till you make it. That is so true. That is so true. I mean, you can't fake it with your customer when you're running mortgage numbers, but
No,
to I tell my loan officers, don't ever, you don't tell anyone how long you've been doing this. Nobody cares. Okay. And yeah, your confidence and your ability to serve them radiates. If you see a lot of loan officers out there that are newer in the last like 5 years, they've had some phenomenal training. And some of the ones that I know that are really successful, you know, I'll be the first to admit, I used to think, oh, people are just here for the refis, but there's some solid coaching and training out there in our industry right now. And they teach that like confidence is key, getting out there and getting in front of everybody and showing your hustle because that's what they want.
for our listeners that are being told on a regular basis not to buy a home by who knows who on the internet, what's your retort to that?
First of all, it's so important to own a home. It is the key to stability. Statistically, you're a better employee. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There is absolutely no reason to not have a piece of this country that you can call yours, that you own for tax purposes, for just the feeling of worth. Um, I just got off the phone with a customer right before this podcast who called me a year ago for numbers on a house. And in this case, it was a secondary home. They're older and they have some savings and they wanted to buy a second home. And I joked when I called him back and I said, "Are you really asking me for rates again a year later? You know what I am going to tell you? I'm not going to tell you what the rate is, but I'm going to tell you the same house in that neighborhood that you were looking at last year is 80,000 more." Okay. 80,000. And he started laughing. And I
Wow.
said, and I'm frank with him like this, and we can joke because I've done several loans for him. He's originally from Staten Island, me too. And we just have a little bit of a camaraderie. And I'm also looking in the same area that he's looking. And I also didn't do it last year. So I'm
Wow.
an idiot too. But what I would say is 1000% get out there. There is grant programs, there's first-time home buyer programs, there's all different good stuff out there. And if you have first month's, last month's insecurity, you have enough to buy a house. And if you have crappy credit, there's a million good mortgage professionals like myself out there that for no cost will help you, guide you to the right people, help you come up with a game plan so that you eventually can get there.
Do people convince themselves out of the starting?
Yeah, of course. There's no schooling in this, right? You never learned about a mortgage in anything until you got into this industry, I'm assuming, and or needed one yourself. Um, so yeah, it's important. You can't talk yourself out of it, but bringing that up, I'm in the process of launching another company, which is an educational company. And it is a component for real estate and mortgage that will be put into employers' benefit packages. So if you have a job and you have an employer that cares about you as much as they should, they'll be putting my package in there because it's
What,
no charge to them.
what's the package? Can you talk about it or
I would talk about it next time you have me on,
fair
just
enough?
because I haven't launched yet and I'm excited about it and I want it to have its own day to shine, you know, and then I'll share. But it's been a long time coming. It should have been launched, but then COVID hit and I really didn't know how it was going to look, if it was going to have to be all technology based and videos, or we are going to be able to get in person again and work with employers. So
Why do you think employers should care about their people in
well,
that way?
statistically, if your employee owns a home and you've
Okay.
had any direct correlation with assisting in that, they're always going to be loyal to you. And an employee that is at work and is going through the process is completely consumed by the process to where they are not benefiting you as an employer or an employee because they're giving you half the day because they're on the phone with their realtor or their mortgage professional. Jay, there's people who don't even know what a W-2 is. Okay. They don't know what the form looks like. An average consumer doesn't look at a W-2 except for to file their taxes. And if they don't file them themselves, they're not really looking at it. It comes in the mail, they give it to their accountant, H&R Block, whoever, and that's that. So this is a component of education, and it's going to get some top real estate agents and top loan officers in front of these employees and help assist to get this country in a situation where everyone understands how a mortgage works and how to get one and the help they need to get one.
How's the industry?
It's awesome.
What's the morale?
I personally think it's wonderful. I mean, my team is doing great. We had an awesome year last year. My January and February are stacking up to be right, right in line with some of the biggest years that I've had yet. Interest rates haven't been a really big factor. They're not where we'd like them to be, but we're getting there. The 30-year fixed is probably around the same as it was mid-December. We did have like an uptick there for a couple weeks, but starting to chill out again. Um, yeah, so I
What does
mean,
the conversation look like with buyers today versus 3 or 4 years ago?
I'm starting to I'm not hearing as much anymore of the complaining about interest rates. Like people are starting to grasp onto the fact that we're not in the COVID times and our country isn't in distress to that regard. So we're not going to be at 1 3/4 on a 15-year and 3 3/4 on a 30-year. Those days, they don't exist. There is a tremendous amount of consumer debt in the American people right now, and
Really?
we're starting to see a little bit more of light bulbs go off with people realizing if they have 30% interest rates on their credit cards, but 3% on a 30-year fixed, that they are not there. All this equity in their home is is something that they can be helped with, and they're not
But how?
holding on as tightly.
How is that helpful?
So it's helping because they're able to refinance, they're able to consolidate, get all of their debt and build into one payment, which that interest then becomes tax deductible. They have the opportunity to refinance it. If they stay in the debt, it's just going to continue to grow because they barely can make the minimum payments. And then they risk potentially defaulting on the credit cards, ruining their credit, and then maybe jeopardizing the equity in their home by defaulting on their mortgage. So you got to get a hold of it, and you got to get a hold of it fast. I just refied somebody into sixes from threes, 1,700 a month savings, and that's no joke. They had every credit card out there. A mattress was financed down to like what they were sleeping on. So it's
What?
wild.
Yeah, what the hell is up with our culture?
I know. I
Wow.
want Capital Grill tonight, and I don't have any money, but I have a credit card. So I'm going to go get $100 steak and have a martini and forget about it until tomorrow. And then I'm going to wake up and not be able to pay for it. And it's going to be 30% interest on that steak. It's
That
wild.
sounds like hell.
Yeah. Yep.
But by and large, there's a lot of equity in our listeners' houses that they might not even realize based on appreciation. And consumer debt is at an all-time high by leaps and bounds.
Correct.
So from a professional standpoint, to reach out and find out from customers what's your situation, and you could be helpful, and you're capitalizing on that.
Correct.
For the loan
Absolutely.
officers listening to that,
Yeah. Yep.
that's how they're serving. What about our buyers buying, like, because some of the many of the guests have said that there's the prices has stayed, you know, fixed, but the supply is low because of builders not having enough
Yep.
built. So is that making things more competitive, or is that offset somewhat by the people that have left the business? And I'm not sure how many have left the business. If
Yeah, there's so
you
many
have a ballpark.
statistics, and you don't know if you believe them or not. They allege that only 78,000 renewed their officer license in 25, 425, but there could be delays in that. It's only
70,000
January.
out of 400.
Yeah. hmm But I don't know. I don't know if that's true. You don't know the statistics. But
Well,
I will.
figures lie and liars figure.
Yes, correct. And there's a lot of pockets, even, the area that I live in. So, you know, a block from here, the inventory could go in 1 week, 2 blocks the other way, it could sit for 2 months. It's weird. It's where people want to be. Like Philly has pockets. There's some pockets that are still phenomenal and they just go like that. And then there's others that sit.
How have you built and maintained realtor relationships over your career?
Friendships, friendships. And actually, like, do you want to talk to somebody every day or 3 times a week that you wouldn't want to be friends with? Because I don't. I wouldn't be on here right now if I didn't like you or want to be your friend or think you're my friend.
Yeah, well, you know what? I believe you.
Yeah, right. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
it's such a good point. It's
my
that's
friends
yeah, that's
are
everything.
my referral partners,
Mm.
and it's easier to build friendships than it is to build business relationships that you don't have friendships, right? Because then they have no hair on them. They're not going to stick because you're just the next one until somebody else calls and says, you want a free dinner, or you want Phillies tickets, or you want this, or you want that, or I'll split a Zillow with
People
you.
people do that to get business.
Yeah, or I'm going to a new shop and they're offering me this, and their in-house mortgage will do that. You know, the people that I work with on a regular basis, we all understand that although I'm not their only one, I'm one of their number ones. And
Mm.
that's what I want to be. They know I'm their number one in the bucket of where they think I belong and the certain personality of a client and what I bring. And I've built relationships with them, and I contribute to their business, in some cases not monetary at all, but just in wisdom and guidance, and you know they
What are
get
they
get it
relying
done.
on? Because there are many realtors and owners listen to this. What are their expectations of their debt partner and that mortgage partner in that
I would
relationship?
hope that their expectation is that we're just going to get the loan closed, right? Like that we have the experience enough to guide their consumer and get the deal to the table, because no one gets paid until it gets closed. Um, that we're sharp and knowing what we're doing when we're pre-approving, that we're, making sure that everything's tightened up. And then also really important is that we have products that fit every bucket, and that we also use appraisers that are going to make sure that they understand the market. There's a lot of things that go into it, but really, Jay, at the end of the day, it's just that we get it done.
What about accessibility and like uh, sense of urgency?
Yeah, I mean, I call it umph, and you can't train it, right? So yeah, I mean,
I'll
I
get
would
to that
think
tomorrow.
super important to be on top of it. And, to Luke's videos, like every milestone, a video comes out because he's trying to show that he's shining above maybe someone who isn't even letting them know. You know, when your agent is telling you something before you're telling them, then you're not doing your job.
That's good.
Hmm.
Wow. Hey, what's do you have a word for 2025? And if you don't, what would it be?
I don't have one. Hmm. Mm, Thrive.
What does
Thrive
thrive
in
mean to you?
25.
Thrive 25.
Yeah.
Why?
Because my goal for 25 is to increase productivity, not just in my current company, but to launch my new one and to watch it thrive.
Krista, you're the best. If anybody is listening to this, well, that almost sounds if anybody.
Yeah, right. Hopefully, there's one person listening to this.
I love it. It's so much fun to talk to you. It's like running. Oh, like, are you there?
Right. Anybody? Anyone listening?
How can they follow and connect with you?
They can
Follow,
connect
connect
with
with you,
me.
Instagram,
Yeah.
want to do business with you. What's the fastest way to connect with you?
The fastest way to connect with me is by my cell phone. Cell phones are attached to our hip at all times. Social media is great, but my phone number's out there and everything. So, my phone number. Would you like me to say it?
Yeah. Well, no,
You're
not
gonna
not
put it
unless
in, right?
you, not unless you, I mean, not unless you really want to.
No, it's fine.
Sometimes people do, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Mine is 267-885-6418. Though I'll go first in case the stalkers come at me.
There you go.
Yeah, we can
All
go at that
right.
together. Yeah, yeah. Um,
215-807-9300.
you're a light. Thrive
Thank you.
2025. I'm excited for you to finally come on the show. And yes, that it's better now that we do have listeners on a couple years ago. That was some trauma from the past, I think. Anybody there?
That's too good. That's
Yeah,
too
yeah, it's
good.
these moments that make it great, a fun show. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I have to say to the listeners, connect with Krista. Everything she's shared is who she is. She's a relationship leader, trainer, teacher, and has had a very big positive impact on my life as our paths have crossed over the years. And, one of the few people that really saw me, like accepted my crazy from the very beginning. So I deeply, words can't describe the appreciation. And, yeah, you got to come back soon.
Thanks, Jay. Love you.
Love you too. If you're listening to this podcast, share this with a friend. That's what I was trying to say earlier, because that's what I always say at the end. And please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, but don't give us a review if you want us to take down the video. We won't listen to that one, and we'll see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.